So, welcome everyone. This is Annette Under God, and with me is Barry Stevens. And so I'll be interviewing him today. I think you are in for a treat. He's a very interesting, targeted individual as well as a veteran. And so, for people who are meeting you for the first time, Barry, who are you and what should we know about you?
Yeah, hi, Annette. It's nice to talk to you, and I've been following your channel, and thank you for, putting out some great content to help people in our situation. So I am a former military. I'm from the East Coast. I don't know how all this started. My father was involved in organized crime, but he was not a gangster or criminal. He was just involved with the mob, with his business and the union he was in, and he knew what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. So that's a fact. And maybe that's starting from that. I don't know. But I think that it's because of my experience, not only in the military, but as a contractor overseas. I was in combat in the military for two tours in Iraq. I was wounded in action, and then I ended up as a contractor in Afghanistan, and I was involved with some very powerful local people. I ended up becoming a source for intelligence agencies, and I was talking about stuff maybe that I shouldn't have. I wasn't disclosing any top secret information, but I was plugged in on the ground, and I had a lot of knowledge of what was going on, and I was vocal on social media. So that is perhaps a reason why this has been happening to me. And I came back from Asia in 2013, and I was not aware of any of this or any of this program or whatever until I was at graduate school in 2019. My last semester of graduate school was when I realized something very strange is happening to me.
Okay. Okay. Well, first, thank you for your service. And secondly, what were some of the things you were experiencing that would demonstrate you being targeted
Um,
at time?
well, right off the bat, there was a lot of traffic in areas where, normally, like, it was just, I was consumed by traffic going to school, and then I was being approached by people, uh, weird people, just asking, doing weird things, and I was kind of like wondering what is going on here. I would be going into stores and people coming into stores and giving me dirty looks and things like that. I remember going to the dispensary that I would go to, and there was an FBI agent with his badge, um, sitting behind the cashier while I was in there doing my, just going in to get stuff. My professors were involved.
Oh, wow.
Um, I was staying at here. I was all of a sudden my landlord uh, kicks me out of my apartment for no reason at my last semester of grad school, and I wasn't doing anything. I just and it wasn't a eviction. It was like after a year, it was like a month to month lease, and so she's just like, I come back and there's a note at my door saying you got to leave in 30 days. So I was like, what is that all about? I left. I ended up in Airbnbs. They would surround me at the Airbnbs,
Mhm.
and then I would have helicopters all over me everywhere I was
Mm.
going. Police were following me, and I was realizing, I thought, because I have associations because of my father growing up, I still am associated to an extent with people in the mob, but I'm not a criminal. And I was doing some writing. I'm a writer, and I was or I'm an aspiring writer. I was writing about things involving our current president and the mob. And anyway, I thought that I was just under surveillance. I thought initially I was like, all right, maybe it's because of this mob stuff, but I'm like, this isn't surveillance, This,
Right.
it's it's not surveillance. It's totally different. And um, initially you're like, is somebody trying to kill me?
Mhm.
And and that's when I ended up going to the VA and seeking refuge there.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily want to go too much into that, but it was clear to me that they were part of this racket.
Right.
And and I didn't get a chance to finish. I was in my last semester of graduate school, and I have one class. I had to leave. They chased me out of town basically, and um, I've got one class left that I have to take to get my MBA. But I ended up being steered into all of a sudden, like this my oldest friends in my family, my godfather and his family, and his daughter offered me to come stay with them in Pennsylvania. And
Mhm.
about after 2 weeks of being there, I realized that they were all involved in it.
Wow.
And I was invited to speak at a very prestigious university.
What
Uh,
can I stop you right there when you say they were all involved in it? What did that look like?
just when
What
I
are
remember when I first saw them, and I'd known her since I was a baby, and her father's my grand or godfather. And I just remember when I first came to her house, the look she gave me
mm,
was very peculiar. It wasn't, oh hey, how are you? She had this look like, and I didn't at that point I didn't realize it, but then things started happening, and I was I'm pretty sure that I was going to be snatched up out of that area by
mhm,
whoever these folks were because of my speaking at this university, talking about what I was doing overseas. Um,
mhm,
there were two times during my stay there where I realized that this is a setup and it's heartbreaking. And
mhm.
I ended up escaping from there and back at the VA. And I'm like, are these people trying to kill me?
Mhm.
And when you're driving around and you're wondering if you're going to get snatched up anywhere, it's
Mhm.
tremendous stress.
Mhm. We
So
talked a little bit before, um, just some introductory kind of conversation. Can you share with us that experience you had when you were walking down the street and kind of employing some of your military training? I think you called it counter surveillance, where
well, counter surveillance. I was taught by some guys in Afghanistan about how to watch your back. These professionals. And I was in Philadelphia when all this was happening. I visiting a friend in Philadelphia, and that was a setup.
Mhm.
One of my oldest friends, that was also a setup, and it's not psychosis either. It was real deal. Oh yeah, come stay at my apartment. For the weekend, watch the dog. He was away, and anyway, I went out one night because I'm like, I'm going to test these guys, and this is in Philadelphia. And I went out. It was dark and it was eerily quiet. And I was walking down Front Street, and there was nobody out, and there was almost like it was like a fog out. It's really mysterious. And I was walking down the sidewalk, and I would turn and look behind me every 20 paces as part of
Mhm.
that training. And I remember I was walking, I'd look back, there was no one there, and then I looked back another time, and here's this very intimidating looking military type male in civilian clothes sprinting at me.
Mhm.
And I turned, and he was sprinting, and I still had about 20 yards in between, and he stopped, and then he pretended to look down at his watch, and just as that happened, six cars, a convoy of six cars came racing past, and I kind of offset what I think was a synchronized plan for him to run up on me, zap me with something, and then they would have thrown me in that convoy of vehicles. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And I
Yeah.
relate a lot that for intimidation, they do a lot to instill fear and come very close to um, something that may appear like they're going to inflict damage or going to harm you. Do you think that it was really a plan to kidnap you, or do you think it was more so just to increase fear?
Well, it's a great point, and that's what they were. I'm a tough guy, I'm not being boastful, but I am a tough guy, and they really wanted to terrorize me,
Right, right,
and they said this guy's not a softie. We really, I believe they're saying that we really got to shake this guy up.
right.
The fact that this guy, there's nobody out that night, and this guy's running up behind me, and then he stops when I
Mm,
turned around, and he pretends to look at his watch. It was really, I was like, oh man, I got you. And then all of a sudden, there's no cars anywhere, and then there's a convoy of 6 cars that races by me. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they certainly scared me, because I backed away from him across the street after the convoy of cars passed. He's standing there looking at his watch, and I backpedaled across the street. Not and they know that they couldn't come at me face to face. You see what I'm saying?
right.
So
Yes,
at that point, when I'm facing him, I totally just threw his whole plan off because he's like, I can't get it. I can't do that. I can't go with this guy from the front. And I totally kind of offset that synchronization of him hitting me, zapping me, or whatever, and throwing me in the. That's what I think was happening.
hmm,
And then I went back to the apartment. I'm like, okay, I think this is really serious. Like I think somebody just tried to snatch me up out there. You know what I mean?
right, right.
From
I
that
want to,
point on, it was just.
yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I want to, yeah, I want to revisit something just to make it clearer in terms of what you were experiencing. And then I want to jump back to where we are. You said there was an increase in traffic when you started to realize, wow, things are becoming a bit different here. You started to realize an increase in traffic, um,
Yeah,
an
that was
increase
initially the.
in dirty looks.
Yeah,
Professors were um, uh, all of a sudden appeared to interact differently with you, and there was
absolutely.
a change in, or there was a feeling when you were in Airbnbs that you were being, um, I guess you said watched or
Yeah,
monitored.
yes, you're correct on everything. I would
Mhm.
pull into mini mart, like just regular gas stations. I'd pull in, like mini mart gas stations that would be empty. And as soon as I would pull up and park at a gas, there'd be like 6 cars that would come kind of roaring in, you know.
Okay.
Um, and then, I'd walk in and, the people would walking in, and they would just look at you.
Hmm.
Um, and the professors, I remember, I was I'd be in an like kind of a small, like kind of amphitheater type classroom where I would normally sit, and like a professor would walk into this big room, and he would look at me right off the bat when he would walk in to start teaching class. Like I was the first guy he was looking at. And then the Airbnb. This is really creepy. I stayed at an Airbnb, and it was kind of a really neat little kind of villa hotel, and the villa right next to me was vacant, and this woman arrived one day, and she was a bodybuilder. I mean, she was like, she was enormous. She was obviously on steroids, and it was a shared pool, and I had kind of the two villas shared a little pool, and I had a porch with like these reflective glass, so I could look out at the pool, and she couldn't see, and she was out there laying by the pool, and she kept looking up at the at my porch, like she had eyes on the porch, right? And I would watch her. She'd like look down and pretend to be looking at her phone, but then she would keep looking up at the porch. And I said, I'm under surveillance here, So I'm like, I'm gonna go, screw with this person because I know I'm under surveillance. You know what I mean? I could see it. And I went out and started talking to her, and she got real nervous, and she said she was some kind of PhD and psychology and all this stuff, and you can tell by their eyes. She was very nervous, and a lot of the people that I would see who had these looks in their eyes, like holy, like they were very nervous. Like obviously they had read some type of dossier or whatever, and my military background or whatever, and they're kind of looking at me like, and I could smell them too. That's the other thing. They would have they would have body odor from when I would be approached by people because they're all worked up. They would have BO.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've heard that
So
before.
yeah. Well, because they're like I said, I'm. They might think I'm a very dangerous threat by my background and experience and whatever, and I'm a nice person, but that might be. But it would always happen. Like I'd always know, like when I'm in a store, that somebody would walk up and I could smell them. I realized that this is insane. My buddy said go to the VA. I went to the VA and I checked into the VA for inpatient, and I was in the kind of one of the rooms, and I was looking out into the nurses station, and I saw that woman in the nurses station, like on a clipboard.
That same woman, they body
Yeah.
built?
Yes.
Okay. And she was working as, in what role?
I have no idea. I didn't get a chance. I saw her from afar, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is that woman doing here?" And I was in a room, like a waiting room, and then she had left.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
So she was following me the whole way. She wanted, I think it was her objective to get me into the VA.
Right, right. How long were you at the VA in terms of, did you do inpatient or was it an outpatient kind of
It was
situation?
inpatient, about a week,
Oh, about a week.
and then I
Okay.
got out, and I got out, and it was. I realized when I got out, I was like, "This is major. Um, there's something really serious going on here." And
Right.
the following, it was that was all. It was all over me again,
Mhm.
everywhere, and it drives you into a state of psychosis. And that's when I was invited up to stay with my friends that I was just talking about.
Okay. You describe yourself as a whistleblower. Um, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I don't want to go too much into detail. Like I said, I think I was just being very vocal about what was happening overseas about things.
Okay.
I just don't. I mean, I don't want to piss anybody off, you know,
Right. No, I understand. I
because
understand.
this has been going on for me for since 2019. It was
Mm,
very heavy for 5 years,
okay.
and then it slowed down, and now I'm able to do things, and I'm not getting slammed like I used to. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so I really do appreciate your heart of wanting to help other targeted individuals with your story, even at a time where you're feeling like, well, I'm getting um, some time to breathe here, but you're putting yourself out there, and that's really admirable. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I care about people. I'm a nice person, and this is terrifying. When this is all starting, it's absolutely terrifying. And then when your friends and family get involved, it's really heartbreaking. But I think whatever this is, it's a behavioral modification program,
okay,
and they want you for whatever reason to adjust. At least in my case, to adjust my behavior to and become somewhat marginalized. There's been a push along the way for me to get involved in church. I would constantly people would say, "Oh, you need to go to church," and I wasn't a practicing Christian or Catholic. And over the past year, I started going back to mass. I went to a priest. I confessed, and now I'm a practicing Catholic. And now it's dwindled significantly. So I'm saying, was my relationship with the church a reason why this has been is not as significant as it used to be? Um, But it's, I still go to the supermarket, and it's like every time I go there, the fire truck pulls up, in front. It's like, and there's some type of, they got the street theater. Um,
Right.
but I'm not getting approached in parking lots by weird people. And I'm not getting, a lot of, it used to be I'd go to a cashier and it seems like they're looking at me, like, they're involved. But, now it seems like a lot of it is tapered off, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. And tell me, how do you distinguish between something you believe as intentional targeting and something that might have another explanation, meaning um, the things they do really do just mimic everyday things at times. How do we distinguish between that? Is it the feeling we get? Is it the repetition? How do you distinguish?
Well, it's very tough because they create this environment where everything, you question everything.
Mhm.
Like, and I told you about the gentleman I used to talk to, and who was very helpful. But then he's like, "Oh yeah, you see that 18 wheeler? What's written on the side of it? That's part of it." It's like, that's not healthy. Like,
Right,
and you get to a point where you say, "All right, look, just don't pay any attention to
right,
to, to everything." I mean, and
yeah.
you just try to shut it off. Um, And like I said, now I'm into my seventh year of this, overt, if you will. I mean, obviously they could have had their eyes on me for a long time, but I didn't start figuring this out until 2019. And I've actually, like I said, becoming a Catholic again, and being kind and doing, better things. Like, I don't know, but my lifestyle change has definitely affected what's happening. I used to
Right.
be lust. I'm a single guy, and I used to be lustful and all this stuff. I don't even have any of that anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, I'm a very good Catholic, and like I said, there's definitely a correlation between that lifestyle change and the level of targeting.
mhm. Did you have, but I think that question that we just discussed is so poignant for targets because they want us to see them everywhere. And so that's why it mimics everyday things. And it's so important, like you said, to ignore um, much of this stuff because you you will begin to see it everywhere. It will consume your life, and it's not everywhere. Uh, for instance, I've had close people talk in a particular way, and I know they're not targeting me, but because this stuff has permeated your life, you could think that everyone's in on it, and everyone's
Yes.
not. Um, and so that's why I asked you that question. It's such an important way to approach this thing to really have discernment,
Yeah.
because we
That's
want
that's
everything not weaponized.
the objective is for you to walk into a mental health facility and say everybody is after me, and they say, "Boom, you're schizophrenic." That's the
Right,
objective.
right,
All right. I've been in situations where people would walk up to me with things written on their t-shirts, stop
hmm
in front of me. I call them drones. I used to call them drones. They'd
They
send
do,
people in. What's that?
they do appear to be.
Yeah, no, I've had this. They're part of it. I remember, like, I would be walking somewhere, and some guy, a drone, would walk up to me and stop, and he would have something written on his t-shirt. I'd look at it. He'd turn and walk away. So, and they would have messages written on t-shirts. I've been in places where, the satellite, like a restaurant, or I told you about the barbershop incident where I'm sitting there and the music's playing, and then all of a sudden it would stop and a loop would come in, and the music is like some guy talking about dying. So there's this thing about death threats. Uh, I used to get these really freaky death threats. I have cars, pull in front of me that have giant skulls on the back windshield. I mean, this was in the early part of the program for me, and it's part of that scare the hell out of you process. You know, so yeah, that's all there, man. That's all part of it. And then, like I said, now I'm sitting in a parking lot at a fast food restaurant, and normally I would have, back when this was going on, I would have cars looping behind me, or somebody, parked over there that gets out and smokes a cigarette staring at me. And I'm not seeing that anymore. Thank the good Lord.
Yes, yes. So how did you determine that you were a targeted individual? And initially, did you have anyone to believe you and support you?
Um, Everybody thought I was crazy when I first started saying, I'm getting followed, I'm getting cars all over me, and blah blah blah. And people like, you're just, it's your PTSD, man, from the war, you got PTSD, and it's like I'm so frustrated. I'm like, no, it's not, it's not that. I got people all over me, man, and if somehow I remember, I think I got online and started maybe researching, like, being followed or something, and then I discovered this, this gang stalking, targeted individual community that I would say 20% of it is legitimate, and the rest are either people that do have mental illness or people that are part of the opposition, controlled opposition.
Mhm.
So even in this community, you're constantly thinking, is this person a perp or what happened, this, that, the other thing. But there are a few out there like yourself who are, genuinely, not part of it.
Oh, I appreciate it. So what have you learned about yourself through this experience?
What have I learned about myself? Uh, that I'm a pretty tough guy. I'm a
Yes,
resilient person.
yes.
And there were times where I said, what's the sense of even living if I've got to get up? If I'm too nervous to leave my house to go to a 7-Eleven, what's the point of even living? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Or, is this the rest of my life? But, I hung in there, and I think that my relationship with the church has maybe saved me from all this. I don't know. I hope that, at the end of this, I hope all of a sudden they don't start up again. But like I said, I just want people to know that you can get through this, you know,
right,
and there's other people that have been through this, and don't take it personal. Whatever
right,
this thing is, it's a human rights violation.
yes,
It's illegal, and the fact that it's happening in the United States of America is very disappointing, and it's terrifying that there's this racket. Why the hell why are ambulance paramedics who are trained to save people involved in harassment? I mean, it's really disgusting that the
right,
land of the country of America, where you have liberty, to be essentially a communist totalitarian state, basically.
right. Well, that was my next question of what would you advise or share with a person who may be going through this and um, feeling defeated, dejected um, in this targeting? So,
What would I suggest to get through this? Is that your question? I'm sorry.
I mean, what would you tell them? What would you share with them? What's been something that um, significant that got you through this day to day?
Resilience, perseverance, a belief in a higher power, prayer, um, meditation, staying away from alcohol and substances,
Mhm.
um, realizing that if you have to close your circle down to just you, that's fine. You don't have to talk to everybody. Don't you have to at this point, don't be codependent on people and have to worry about, or are they in on it? Just if you got to get your circle as small as possible and work on getting first downs, if you will, if you to use a football terminology, every day try to work on. All right, let me just get out of the house and accomplish a task, and then come back and and recover from it, and do it at your own pace till
Well,
eventually it you know hopefully it'll taper off for you.
I love that. I love that approach, because you could really, I'm assuming people may be feeling defeated, in this, and but a little win each day is still a win. It's still progress, and I don't care how small or minuscule it is. It still speaks to change. For those who are feeling fearful, get out, push yourself, do something that you've been preventing yourself from doing. Um, and I love the eating right. That really, I think that speaks to fortifying the mind and spirit against these attacks as well. Even the physical, for those who are enduring, do. So I really love that advice. These are practical things that are sure up the community, the individuals of our community. So I
Yeah, like
appreciate
I said, just work on getting first downs. Which
it. Mhm.
don't worry about touchdowns. Just get a first
Mhm.
down, and
I love
okay, you get that done, and then make incremental progress. As you move forward. You know what I mean?
it. I love it. And that's how you kept your life on the road, I assume.
Yeah, I've been all over the country for I don't know 5 years. I was literally driving back and forth across the country trying to outrun this thing.
Right. Did you
Really?
find relief at any time? Would it be a day or two or hours or none at all? They were just right on your heels, because when I travel, they're right on my heels. And I've
Oh
been
yeah.
all over the globe and they've been right there. I mean, it's just the strangest uh
Oh yeah. I had a guy. One of my childhood. I was in. I started on the East Coast, and my childhood friend I've known since I was 5 years old invited me to California. And I drove all the way across country, and the whole way was they shut down rest stops, man. They
crazy.
closed rest stops the whole way. Like for my whole way, I couldn't get to a rest stop.
Crazy.
They closed them, and I get to his house, and within a minute of meeting him, I realized, oh my God, this is part of it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it got his neighbors below. It was awful, and I was there for 2 months before I escaped to Mexico, and then
Oh wow.
I came back across the border, and a guy I was in the military with, oh, come stay with me. He was involved with it. I mean, it was
Wow.
just, oh yeah, it was brutal. And
And so they're
they,
just looking for an opportunity to, I don't know, to be financially, um, receive the financial piece of it, or
well, correct. Well, yeah, I
take.
don't know. It was heartbreaking. When you realize that these people are involved. They obviously signed some type. They're working for it. It's probably Department of Homeland Security, I think, is the guys that are doing the whole thing. But they sign NDAs and they're probably getting some type of financial benefit. But what was really strange is when I was in California and then I escaped down to Mexico, and then my military friend invites me up to Northern California, and I went up to his place. They would do things with like orange cones, like he asked me, "Oh, can you drive me to my office?" So I'm driving his vehicle, and we get close to his office, and the whole street. that his office was on was there's orange cones all over it, and there was no construction, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? And I have to maneuver through like lanes of orange cones, and it's like some type of conditioning, uh, you know, exercise. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that was really crazy and creepy. And I'm ready to look at him like, you mother, like you've got, I couldn't because I'm staying with him. But
Right.
yeah, I ended up in this, like maze of cones to, to decondition, whatever, because I'm such a threat. And then you'd see a lot of fluorescent green all over the place and orange cones. And
Do you have
yeah,
some
it was
type of
really,
association with cones? I mean, is that what they're drawing something from your past to highlight? Do you have something?
I think it was color stimuli to control behavior.
Hmm. Okay.
Like if they surround you with people with lime vests, bright fluorescent vests, or bright orange cones, that does a number on your psyche. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm. If you see it repeatedly,
Yeah.
uh,
Or if
not a
you're,
one-off.
or if you end up on a street that's just covered with orange cones, and now you got to drive very carefully, for 100 yards, on this lane of orange cones, and I'm saying, what is this? There's no construction. You know
So
what I
this
mean?
is not, a one-off. This is repeatedly where you will know that this is unusual. This is something that is organized, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like there was somebody, some expert, some psychologist who's working for somebody says, okay, let's get him down this street and
Mhm.
surround him with stimuli, with visual stimuli. Or and they'll do light shows with the police. I'd pull into a neighborhood at night, and all of a sudden there'd be a police car parked with all the lights on, everything flashing like a UFO, and I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And I had an ex girlfriend that was involved, and she's like, oh, did you see the light show? And it's like I want to strangle her. It was nuts, crazy. I couldn't. Everywhere it got into everything, and everything was a setup. And she poisoned me one night. We were in the room sleeping, and I woke up, and there was this awful chemical smell in the room, and I woke up almost coughing, and I'm like, what is that? And she said, oh, the dog's got gas. Like, no, that's not. That's not. That's a chemical. And I
Mhm.
and then I like the next day I talked to her on the phone. I was like, what was up with that chemical? She's like, don't. I was like, are you involved in this? And she goes, don't you ever ask me that ever again. Like, or else it's over. But she
Mm.
was she was participating as well.
Did you get sick from the gas, or was it just the
Yeah,
terrible
it burned my nasal, and the lights were off. And I went downstairs, and and like, how the heck could she? I mean, did she have something in her nostrils that was like, because it was burning my nasal passages,
right?
really creepy. And
That's
like the next day I got online and I'm like Googling, poisoning, and they're like, yeah, part of this thing is like they'll release, chemical agents and through vents and things like that. And then also like the other thing too is like all of a sudden she got all this remodeling done at her house. Like when like I started dating her and I'm with her, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm getting a whole new air conditioning and heating vent or system put in the house. And
Mhm.
then she got her bathroom totally remodeled. And so now there was like construction people in the house, like doing things, and there's this another theme of kind of like painting and reconstructing and remodeling. Which is a weird theme in this too that I've seen, that like, the remodeling of her bathroom wasn't just plain remodeling. In some way, it was indicative of me. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, like things were always getting repainted everywhere and
Mhm.
remodeled and repainted.
Mhm.
It's just really strange, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand. I used to, when I would go out of town and return, and even when I went on site for work and returned, there was a smell of painting in my home. So I don't know what they're doing with the walls or installing, and then they have to paint over it. But I'm sure it's to enhance their attack on us, you know. So I don't know. I never understood what it or was able to identify what it was.
I Yeah, there was another like part of this journey. I ended up, you know, leaving that woman, and I ended up renting a room from a woman in a house, and the woman was normal. And after a couple of weeks, she started acting funny, and then literally, and she was not a wealthy woman. She had like a 5 bedroom house, and after a couple of weeks, her entire house got remodeled. And I'm like, how in the world? And then I realized, okay, this is, well, here we go again, because there's no way she could afford $75,000 worth of remodeling to redo her entire basement, her kitchen, the hallway outside my living room. So I had, and the construction guys were all kind of weird looking, you know, like, you know, they'd look at me like, I mean, you could tell that there was something going on there. So
Oh yeah,
they were probably some type of Fed contractor uh, that was part of the whole thing. You know what I mean?
oh yeah. They want us to know that something fishy is going on, but they certainly don't want us to be able to identify it and document it. But they want you to know. That's why they give you these little, you know, these little clues, these little these constant looks, these constant kind of, you know, um, um, communications, you know. But they don't want us to be able to identify it. But they certainly want the stress of something's going on here, you know. But so where did you stay there
Absolutely.
much longer after the house was?
No, I had to escape that place too. You know.
And when you say escape, you use that word.
No, you end up
Are
with
you saying?
it gets what they do is they start it, and then they just increase the what's the word I'm looking for, the density of everything to the point where it's like excruciating. Where you end up like, oh, screw it, I got to move out of here, and I got to get on the road and drive down to Florida, you know, and rent a room somewhere down there. And you know, and you get there and you realize that the room that you rented off Craigslist is part of this racket as well. You know, and other people move into the room next door to you. You know, it was terrible. You know, and I
Yeah.
couldn't escape it. But it just seems like the place I'm in now, the guy that I'm staying with, we've become very close. But I think that he's involved. You know,
Mhm.
like I moved into this room, and he, like and then go in the bathroom. There's a kind of a stainless steel waste, you know, toilet paper like holder, right? And it's it's like got 3 legs on it. It's 3 steel legs, and one of the legs is bent to where it's constantly like not standing straight, but almost always kind of falling over.
Mhm.
And his son came. His son used to live there and then moved up to South Carolina. And he came for Thanksgiving, and I told him, I was like, "What's up with that little toilet paper thing? It always kind of moves back and forth." He goes, "It wasn't like that before when I left." So somebody actually, when before I moved in there, they bent the little leg just to make it inconvenient for me, so where so it wouldn't stand up straight. It would kind of almost fall over. See what I'm saying with that?
I do.
That little thing just to annoy the hell out of me. But he confirmed, he's like, I didn't, it wasn't like that before when I lived here. Okay, so I'm like,
Mhm.
well, something happened to that before the time you lived here, and by the time me moving in here, somebody bent the freaking leg on. And I talked to the owner, the guy, he's like, oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's up
Yeah.
with that thing? It's like, oh, no, it's nothing to worry about. And I was like, he kind of shrugged it off.
Yeah.
Um, But
and they're particular and you have a certain personality, they will certainly zone in on things like that. Um,
yeah,
um, yeah, they will. So I
I mean,
believe,
that's how they're professional. Like whoever runs these things, they're professional statists. You know,
hmm,
they're paid to to make people suffer. It's like, okay, you imagine some guy, and this whole thing is probably a compartmentalized, off the books program.
hmm,
You know, so it's protected to the point where it theoretically doesn't exist, and if it did, you're not allowed to know about it. And you got some psycho type person, with designing ways to drive people crazy.
but I want to thank you for your time and I thank you for your heart towards the community, because you said your attacks had diminished quite a bit. Yet, you're putting yourself out there. You want to support the community and help in any way you can. So I thank you so much
No
for your
problem, man.
time.
No problem. I'm always here to help. Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.